Throughout my professional career, I hit the jackpot twice. First, my acceptance to the Penn State University Ed Psych, School Psych, and Special Education doctoral program. The opportunity to learn under the mentorship of pioneers in special education was a priceless gift. The second jackpot was when I was offered the special education faculty position at Juniata College. The college offered several structured, progressive, and comprehensive teacher certification programs while demonstrating strict state competencies. The mission of the college was congruent with the mission of the department: prepare lifelong learners, build solid citizens, and promote the learning of all students. At the time of my arrival from Colorado, of the 92 teacher prep programs in the state of Pennsylvania, few, if any, required students to successfully complete coursework in teaching and advocating for students with exceptionalities, language and racial differences, challenging socioeconomic outcomes, and children who daily experienced at-risk conditions, now more specifically referred to as traumatic experiences. So these children didn't have deficits, they had differences. And faculty were aware that these diverse students are those that typically experience the vast majority of civil and political rights violations. Juniata's program required certification students to successfully complete 7 credits, including a practicum, to increase diversity awareness, recognizing that children develop on a continuum rather than a binary structure of typical and atypical. More importantly, department members knew that highly qualified teachers are the constant. And because all children enter formal education with their own picture books of experiences and skills, they will always be the variable. So I was hired to continue working on the inclusive general and special education program. Juniata was highly recognized and respected by peers and the Pennsylvania Department of Education, which is why they asked Juniata and 6 other schools to create this type of program and pilot the outcomes. Most impressive to me was the positive and willing disposition of the faculty to implement even greater comprehensive programs. A critical factor in the accreditation was the Early Childhood Education Center, which provided rich opportunities for application, analysis, synthesis of theories, and empirically based strategies for guiding children and collaboratively working with families. Earning accreditation from the National Association for the Education of Young Children reflected hard work of knowledgeable and committed faculty and staff. Master teachers in early education and special education from the intermediate unit worked collaboratively to provide a model for our students, while exposing preschoolers to diversity and tolerance at any age. For this, I am grateful. Throughout my 30 years in higher ed, I experienced the forced transition from institutions of learning to businesses. Untethered from this new paradigm, I occasionally feel like Margaret Mead, trying to make sense of the changes facing us. Everything is energy, and that's all there is to it, as Dr. Einstein reminded us. How does an institution of higher education determine where it will focus its energy? What we measure reflects what we care about. I've learned that we are all part of a vast drama in which we are required to improvise and adjust to survive. Adrift in the river of reality, you all will work to maintain community and culture for which Juniata is known. The Juniata culture consists of loyal and committed people. Faculty spend an extraordinary amount of time to create and implement solid programs to a wide variety of students. It has been an honor to work with such good and talented people. Higher education isn't perfect, but I guarantee intrigue. I wish the very best for the college, as well as good health and happiness to all of you. Thank you.
Hello, this is Donna Weimer, Chair of Communication and Theater Arts, recognizing Dr. Grace Marie Fala's retirement from Juniata in April of 2021. Over 29 years of compassionate commitment to creating a diverse and inclusive Juniata, Dr. Grace Marie Fala has taught us the tenacity of love over hate, wisdom over ideology, and musicality over linearity in our lives. Her list of accomplishments far surpasses the time I have here. Her classroom moved beyond any one room to wherever hearts were open and ready to look deeply into our shared meanings. She believed in the common good and our power to be agents of change. Along with Fred Rogers, and inspired by her mother Rose, she believed that listening is where the love begins, and she lived her love. Tirelessly, she sought to evoke the possibilities of a more meaningful life through speaking, singing, playing, storytelling, punning, and community building, to be an example of what we can be in a more just and thoughtful world. At times, her patience seemed infinite and her energy boundless in a quest to teach that every interaction is a meaningful contribution, not only to our own growth, to be better humans, but to be a better world. We are all her students. For these reasons, there is no retirement, farewell, or leave-taking from her life's work, but a new venue, a new journey, and fresh adventures to let her imagination soar like the geese in flight she has so often admired. In honor of her passionate commitment to the art of public speaking, we offer these humble words of haiku to recognize her eloquence and listening and power of persuasion. Ethos burns orange notes, singing hope and zany fun to live in goodwill. Pathos prisms love, always embracing courage to radiate good. Logos births wordlings, choosing meaningful worlds to imagine love. Ethos burns orange notes, singing hope and zany fun to live in goodwill. Pathos prisms love, always embracing courage to radiate good. Logos births wordlings, choosing meaningful worlds to imagine love. Her students, colleagues, campus community, and department members will feel her loss keenly, will miss her daily inspiration and presence. We wish her love, laughter, and many songs of harmony and counterpoint in her next adventure. Shine your light, Grace. We love you.
Thank you, Donna, for your eloquent inspiration and for decades of support, friendship, and advocacy but mostly Donna, thank you for embodying the ethos you teach. Because of you and members of the communication and theater department, much of what I highlight in this presentation has been made possible. So a heartfelt thank you to Jesse Sullivan, Neil Utterbach, Lynn Cockett, Jared LeGrew, and Sarah Worley. President Troha, Provost Bowen, Dean Damschroeder, members of the executive leadership team, and all members of the Juniata community. Thank you for being with me on this Juniata journey. You know, Albert Einstein was known for saying that there are two ways to live your life. One is as though nothing is a miracle, and the other is as though everything is a miracle. Okay, admittedly, there's a binary wedge to that quotation. The either-or posturing can fossilize thoughts, because surely academia hasn't been all good or all bad. But for me, it has all been a miracle. You know, each day, as I drive to campus through every season, I'm surrounded by beautiful views. So beautiful that they invite a full body response. I look to study the contours of the valleys and the mountains. I listen for the songs in the farm animals and birds. And I try to touch the confusion in the clouds and smell the seasonal sensations. And for that 35-minute drive, I plan and process my day. And after nearly 30 years of being on this ride, the Juniata journey has been truly worth every spin of the tire. So while reflecting on what I have done to make a difference at Juniata, I hesitate to call that difference a legacy, because things change like the seasons, and like the seasons, we should expect that change. So instead of legacy, let's focus more on synergy, on synchronicity or serendipity, on, well, magic. Because I'd like to think that I did stir up some magic while I've been here, and I think I sparked some, let's say, magical connections. Now, we're gonna watch and listen as Luke Frigello weaves some of his magic into the presentation. Luke. One of the potions has its own synergy, and that's creative expressions. I coined that concept back in 1993 and used it in my syllabi. Another potion, community engaged learning. All of my upper level classes since 1992 have had what was known as service or community outreach. The third potion, maybe the most potent potion, was the formation of AWOL, now turned PRISM. AWOL I formed in 1993. So we have lots of magic in the air, as you could hear, but mostly I'm honored to see that creative expressions, community engaged learning, and PRISM are still synergies of their own. In fact, PRISM has just won the best RSO for the year. Lots of magic in the air. So Luke, do some more of your magic. The most challenging part of my journey has been, without doubt, inserting and asserting diversity into mindset, practice, and policy. And there's still so much more we have to do. When I came out on campus in the early 1990s, let's face it, I confused people and I intrigued them too. When AWOL was formed in 1993, we met only as a support group and only anonymously and confidentially. But years later, AWOL now turned PRISM. We evolved, and as we evolved, the campus evolved. I'd like to say it was the other way around, but frankly, it wasn't. The student pioneers and colleague visionaries, we were the ones to change the campus climate. And we turned heads. We confused and intrigued. We also tried to turn stagnation and status quo into awakenings and transformations. You know, when Dawn and I got married, it was really something unconscionable. We could never picture ourselves walking down an aisle, especially together. To this day, we need to pinch ourselves to make sure that it's still real. But it wasn't just marriage that was unconscionable. The whole idea of a community was unconscionable. Marriage and community, they were privileges, luxuries only for straight people. Certainly we weren't typically welcomed into most communities. But then this Juniata community crossed paths with me, with my path, with my dowel. I couldn't see myself ever as a member of any community, but with the support and love of colleagues, I was able to insert and assert myself. And amazingly, eventually, I was able to be me, this corny, creative communicator that I think myself to be. So why is this even important? Well, each day I still have to pinch myself that I am a member of a community, and I am a member of this Juniata community for 30 years now. Community is a gift. It's not to be taken for granted. Awaken to the miracle of community, to the magic of you. Because if you worry sometimes that community feels more of a calamity, insert and assert yourself. Pinch yourself and remind yourself that your energy is vital and integral to our synergy. Remember that you need to take risks, dare, be corny, be the miracle you wish to see in the world and on this campus. Confuse us, intrigue us, spark our synergy, make us better, because each word, each smile, each step, each mile counts. And it'll be worth every spin of the tire. Now wait for it, especially when you retire. Thank you, everybody.
Greetings, everyone. How do you possibly recognize Loren Rhodes' leadership at Juniata College during his 41 years here, or the impact he has had on his students during that time, or the many colleagues that he has mentored? Let's ask Loren some questions as we go along. Loren, what are some numbers from your time at Juniata College?
Well, 41 years as a faculty member at Juniata. 24 of those years I've been chair of math and computer science and chair of the IT and computer science department. I've taught 77 semesters, adjusted for my 4 sabbaticals over the years. I've been in 6 different offices in one building with 2 names, Brumbaugh Academic Center, and prior was Brumbaugh Science Center. I lived in 3 Huntington Borough residences for 39 years, finally with the simplest access just across the street from my office.
Wow, that's really interesting. During his time at Juniata College, Loren has been a good friend and mentor to all those in the department. He has mentored us in all aspects of Juniata, like how to survive on PEC, how to handle every situation imaginable in the classroom, the best way to navigate a conference with 2,000 computer science professors, and the best advising advice ever: will always make study abroad work. Loren never seemed to tire of her questions and always answered with incredible wisdom, poise, and humor when needed. Loren, how many colleagues have you mentored at Juniata?
Well, I don't know how many I've mentored, but I've worked closely with 11 department colleagues over my time here. From the Math Computer Science Department in the 1980s, it was John Bowser, Sue Esch, Max Heller, Ben Sunderland, and Dale Wampler. Fengmin Zhang joined us in the 90s for 6 years. Since year 2000, the IT Computer Science Department included Jerry Cruzy, Bill Yu, John Wright, Donna Weimer, Marlene Burkhart, and Ryan Gibney.
Loren, who would you like to recognize as your mentors while at Juniata?
There were many unwitting mentors for me beyond my close department colleagues. From my early days were Bill Alexander, Ken Rockwell, Paul Shetler, Norm Seams, Wilfred Norris, Ron and Betty Ann Cherry, Ken and Jane Crosby, George Donikowski, Klaus Jaeger. When the information access course was tied to college writing seminar, I enjoyed the weekly meetings with Donna Weimer and Carol Peters, Mark Hochberg, Peter Goldstein, Janet Lewis, Dave Shung, and numerous other CWS instructors. The IT program creation in 2000 included wise guidance from Ron Cherry and Jim Laxo and Mike Franson.
So many colleagues. I'm sure they're like family. Speaking of family, Loren is personally invested in Juniata College. His wife Donna and 3 children are Juniata alums, which seems to be a trend in the ITCS department. Loren's experience encountering those parent milestones a few years before the rest of the department has helped us all tremendously. We always had questions like how to apply for tuition remission, fill out the FAFSA, to how hard is it to give away your daughter at her wedding. Short answer is hard, but grandchildren make up for everything. Loren, please share with us how invested you are in Juniata.
Well, my immediate family, my spouse, 3 adult children, and their significant others have collectively earned 8 degrees at Juniata. I've not earned a degree from Juniata. My degrees are all from Penn State, but I'll claim a lifelong education from Juniata, from that amazing pool of colleagues mentioned earlier.
Loren has been an outstanding leader during his time as chair of the Department of Information Technology and Computer Science. He has developed 3 new POEs, 4 new secondaries, and a master's program. This while maintaining and expanding the computer science POE. These POEs are all well enrolled, and the master's program is off to a great start. That contribution alone to Juniata is amazing. Loren always shared all his course materials and was willing to field infinite questions on course organization and content. He has been a strong and steady influence during a time of great change. Loren, what are the programs and languages that have been a part of your time at Juniata College?
Well, I've been involved with actually the development of 4 program areas, with 3 of them being interdisciplinary. The reason I was hired in 1980 was to come and develop computer science within the math department. Then in 2000, the information technology program was endowed. A few years later, the integrated media arts kind of fell out of the IT program. And then since 2017, I've helped develop the data science programs. Within all those programs, I've done 30 courses within my time here, incorporating at least 20 major languages, and I'm going to list them. Fortran is actually my native tongue. COBOL, Assembler, Basic, Visual Basic, C, C++, C#, Pascal, Java, JavaScript, HTML, Python, Lisp, Smalltalk, Prolog, Ruby, R, SQL, and PHP.
Wow, that's impressive. But just as impressive, can you imagine the number of students that have learned computer science from Loren and all the successful lives and careers that have followed? That is a legacy that few can match. His passion in the classroom has never waned during his time here. As I pass his classrooms, I hear an incredible enthusiasm and joy for the subject that is just naturally contagious. Loren, do you have an idea of how many students we are talking?
I really don't know how many different students I've had. Maybe that's a question for institutional research. But I did calculate that I have posted over 11,000 grades. That's 20 years of information access with incoming students, 400 a year, say. So that's 8,000 grades themselves. And then my 77 semesters, say on average I had 40 students, and so that's another 3,000 grades that I've posted. In addition, I've sponsored 25 or so senior research projects as well.
While I could not possibly cover all of Loren's accomplishments, I chose to focus on his leadership at Juniata College, the mentorship that we've all felt, and the positive impact he has had on student lives. While he is retiring from full-time teaching, we're all relieved that he plans to continue in the classroom and the department on a part-time basis. Juniata would not be the same without Loren Rhodes. I'm proud to call him my friend. Loren has been a teacher, advisor, mentor, colleague, and friend to so many people. He will be truly missed. Loren, as we close out your talk, can you please share, where all is Juniata taking you? What changes have you witnessed? And what are you going to miss?
Well, besides keeping up with advances in technology, one of the surprises I've had in the past 20 years has been making international connections. Another part of my informal Juniata education. Here are a couple more numbers. I visited 12 universities in 7 countries for exploring and establishing international exchanges. Or I was therefore invited professorships. Those countries include Germany, France, Czech Republic, Ireland, England, China, and India. In the technology realm, I've witnessed many advances at Juniata. When I came, we had a single mini computer with punch cards for the students. Then came paper and CRT terminals. Next came desktop PCs. Later, those were networked back to central servers. And then finally, laptops, Wi-Fi, and today's mobile devices. I will claim to be one of the earliest users of email and web browsing on campus in the mid-1980s. What am I going to miss? Well, let me list some possibilities using one of my favorite testing techniques, true-false. I guess working with computers for over 50 years, I apparently have some affinity for things binary, 1, 0, true, false, yes, no. So let's end with a true-false quiz called What Will Loren Miss at Juniata? What do you think, Bill?
Okay.
Number 1, faculty meetings.
True.
Well, some were fine, but I won't miss the tweaking of wording and correction of spelling and comma and hyphenation placement for the faculty handbook. How about annually coming up with reasons to tell Joanne Crew not to nominate me for a 3rd term on PEC?
Oh, I'd say false.
You're right. How about incessant revision of courses to use new programming language or new teaching modes?
False?
Yeah, mostly false. I always did enjoy new languages and studying them. How about contributing to and participating in a 5th Middle States report?
Oh, I'd say by the tone, that's a false.
That's a false. The Middle States self-study was the topic for my very first August faculty conference. I'm glad not to have to go through that again. How about department meetings that get hijacked by colleagues to whine about students and changes and requests?
Oh, false?
I'm going to say true. That's really true. They were usually fun conversations. My department colleagues. True, true, true. I will miss my faculty and staff colleagues the most. Their camaraderie and friendship, they are exemplars of the community that we know at Juniata. Thank you to all at Juniata for making my career one I gladly do over. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Amy Frazier-Yoder, and I am honored to say some words about our colleague, Dr. Deborah Roney, as she prepares to retire after 22 years of service to Juniata College. I consider Deb a friend. She's a fantastically supportive colleague. And so, Deb, I just want to say how much I'm going to very much miss you here at this institution, where you are an integral part of our success and who we are. So, chances are that you, like I, have benefited from Deb's extreme precision. So she'll go to unusual lengths, foregoing sleep, personal time, to get things just right. Her precision is seen in the use of a comma of that freshman, now senior, who took CWS or first year composition with her. Think of how much correction ink she has saved us all. I'll find myself marveling at a student's use of a semicolon, and I'll say, oh, that makes sense, you had Dr. Deborah Roney for CWS. Her precision is in the evaluation and feedback forms for all of language motion presentations. Self, student, and teacher. She's been ahead of the curve on this assessment thing. It's in remembered details. So my office was just down the hall from hers in World Language Center for many years, and Deb was central command. That's where the details of language and motion played out. Students would reach out to professors, they would sort and log evals, they would organize with schools, they would organize schedules and volunteers and vehicles, and Deb was there, organizing it all. Sometimes I'd forget that Deb did all of this in addition to teaching first year composition, so many ring binders, so many conferences, or history of the language, or modern theories of grammar. And then I'd see her intensely writing an exam. So, to feature all the linguistic cartoons possible, to use the least amount of printer ink and paper, because she's extremely frugal. She didn't write exams, she finely crafted them. She maybe even decoupaged them. They were never recycled content, always new, and they were personalized to each class. So she'd show me sometimes these works of art, and she'd indicate always, I might work on this a little bit more. Never perfect enough. And she'd share the cartoons. So for the edification of Deb, I'm going to share a brief linguistics joke right now. Okay. A linguistics professor was lecturing in class one day. In English, he said, a double negative forms a positive. However, in some languages, such as Russian, a double negative remains a negative. But there isn't a single language, not one, in which a double positive can express a negative. A voice from the back of the room piped up. Yeah, right. All right, to talk about this precision woman's career in a few minutes is basically impossible. Some highlights. So, Dr. Deborah Roney has a PhD in Slavic language and literature, and her early academic career saw her teaching Russian and Polish. Deb and her husband Jim came to Huntington in the early 1980s, and they've raised two amazing boys, Mike and Chris, both of whom, like their parents, are legendary for their intellect. Over the course of her career at Juniata, Deb has taught in the English department, where she began as an adjunct in 1996 and became assistant professor of English in 2004. She's been director of language and motion since 2000. And language and motion is pure genius, but it has survived and thrived by dint of Deb's work and vision. Since 2000, there have been many presentations, thousands of presentations on world cultures and languages, and that have inspired kids to think outside their currently known world. Deb sought and received grant after grant and built up a tremendous consortium of more than 15 member institutions. She's been active in the AAUW for more than 20 years. You may be familiar with the local candidate forums and the Get Out the Vote initiatives that she helps organize. She's also organized 10 sister-to-sister summits, and she offered a career shadowing program for high school sophomores for 20 years. She's also organized Equal Pay Day events. That's a day that denotes how far into the new year women must work to be paid what men were paid the previous year. This year, All Women's Equal Pay Day was celebrated on March 24th. But when Deb started organizing events for this day back in the aughts, which in British English apparently is the noughties, it fell in April. So progress through persistence. What Deb has done in just the past 5 years fills volumes. She worked toward Carnegie classification, provided the writing and the engine and writing power behind multiple faculty learning communities. She edited Juniata Voices, so many commas. She precisely documented our faculty meetings and further extended Language in Motion and broadly presented on Language in Motion, which she also published on, along with publications on internationalization efforts. Deb's service to the college has been incredible, and the past 5 years are just par for the course. So she's an avid reader, and I think a lot of her retirement time should be dedicated to reading. Her official retirement project is to go through her basement archives, which she admits is a kind of way of saying their enormous pile of old stuff, and find the missing pieces so that at least the kids will have a complete copy. So maybe she'll give herself some slack and accept a little less than complete copy of the archives for them. Yeah, right? Yeah, right. I'm certain her projects will, as always, extend far beyond. I invite you to join me in thanking her for an incredible 22 years of service to the college and more, for the innumerable ways in which she has made it a better place for all of us, and to wish her the best as she applies her wit, talent, persistence, and precision to the project of making a lovely retirement. Thank you, and Deb, we will miss you very much.
I'm Deborah Roney, a lover of language who has been lucky enough to use different aspects of it throughout my career. In the 1950s and 60s, linguist Charles Hockett laid out his influential design features of language, that is, the key properties of language. Using this oral mode of communication and 8 more of Hockett's design features, I want to share 5 lessons I have learned from a life in language. The design features of semanticity and pragmatic function. All signals in a communication system have meaning, and they serve some useful purpose. Through language, humans are constantly negotiating meaning for our many purposes. Thus, determining and sharing precise definitions matter. Doing so helps us identify common ground and points of contention, lays the groundwork for logical argumentation, and allows us, individually and together, to grapple with the challenging questions of professional, civic, and private life. Lesson 1. As you navigate these facets of life, consider your purpose, define your terms, clarify your meaning, and be open to changing your mind. The design features of arbitrariness and cultural transmission. The link between the signal and the meaning is, for the most part, arbitrary and conventional. Words don't usually sound like what they mean, and across languages, the same or similar meanings are conveyed through different sound combinations. Thus, although we have an innate capacity for language, we must acquire our words and language structures from other speakers in a given time, place, and culture. It can be messy. Similarly, many problems and opportunities in life, maybe most of them, are messy and linked in multiple ways to those in different cultures, times, or spaces. Inviting others across such real or perceived boundaries to share themselves with you can bring new meaning and clarity. Although doing so can sometimes be frustrating or difficult, it can also be exciting and fun. Lesson 2. Open yourself to working with diverse others to tackle tough problems and share joy. The struggle is stimulating, the work together can be rewarding, and your world may change for the better. The design feature of interchangeability. In language, participants can be both receiver and sender. We can both listen and speak, and it behooves us to do both. Listen to children as they are learning language. What they are doing is astounding. Listen to scholars and artists who uncover and create the world. Listen to students who bring new perspectives. Listen to people as they share their lives. Then, use language to connect with kindness and humor. In doing so, you'll be following philosopher H.P. Grice's cooperative principle, which basically states that conversation works because our contributions are meant to support and further the conversation. For the sake of humor, though, you may have to flout that principle. Lesson 3. We all have something to learn, something to teach, and a need for humor. The design feature of displacement. Some communication systems are restricted to the here and now. Language is not. We can discuss the multiple stories of the past and describe possible futures, and even impossible futures and other options. Lesson 4. Read a lot, and then displace yourself into our many communities to find ways to understand, imagine, and contribute. The design features of discreteness and productivity. An amazing feature of language is that we can take a finite set of sounds or gestures and use it to create an infinite number of utterances, most of which are new. Similarly, novel ideas that look anew at what exists or that recombine elements of what exists are created and shared daily. Lesson 5. Be flexible and open to surprises. A life, and even a national consortium, can grow from them, so don't let them get lost in the mundane. The professional, civic, and personal facets of my life have been enriched by these important lessons and the many wonderful colleagues and students who have helped me learn them. After I got my PhD, my brother gave me a needlepoint that reads, "Finally done." He was premature. As my own graduation from education is at last looming and I head into retirement, I take to heart the linguist llama phonetics meme I have in my office. I want to be a schwa. It's never stressed. Thank you.
Our Russian and International Studies colleague, Dr. Jim Roney, the senior member of the Department of World Languages and Cultures, is retiring after 33 years of truly distinguished service to the college. While diminutive in height, he's been a towering figure in the intellectual life of Juniata since his arrival in 1988. Jim has, of course, served as our resident expert on Slavic languages, literatures, and cultures, but he's contributed so much more to the academic community. In the early 1990s, he created the International Studies program with anthropologist Peter Peregrine and Latin American historian David Sowell, and he's anchored the program ever since by teaching annually one of the introductory core courses, Ideas Empower in the Modern World, as well as the Senior Seminar in International Studies in recent years. Over the past nearly 3 decades, a dozen faculty have taught in International Studies, and Jim has been the glue that has held the program together and enriched the educational experience and expanded the intellectual horizons of hundreds of students. Jim has also been a key player in general education since his arrival, starting with the old GE 200 course, Saints, Czars, and Icons, and he's left his mark on successive curricula. He was one of the core members that developed the cultural analysis requirement of the 1996 GE curriculum, and he served on the team that designed our new general education program. Those who know Jim's passion for Tolstoy and Dostoevsky are well acquainted with his abiding interest in exploring the ethical and moral implications of human conduct. In fact, getting an email message from Jim is often like receiving a letter from Tolstoy. He can rarely just answer your question with a simple yes or no. He must first consider all the possible psychological, moral, and cosmic consequences of his response. What I'll miss most about Jim is informal conversations in the World Language Center, especially when he would stop by my office to share a story from a class he'd just finished. On some days, Jim would practically be skipping down the hallway, and his love of teaching and of challenging students to critically examine their own and other perspectives and practices was palpable. All who know Jim appreciate his encyclopedic knowledge, keen insight, and analytical capacity to make meaningful connections among seemingly disparate fields, ranging from classical Greek philosophy and Bakhtinian literary theory to East European cinema and Huntington soccer. Whether we were commiserating about disastrous U.S. foreign policy or critiquing films we'd both seen, I always came away from our conversations feeling stretched and having learned something of value. With Jim's retirement, we lose a major advocate for and contributor to internationalization and interdisciplinarity. However, Juniata's loss will be his grandchildren's gain, and they'll soon be benefiting from more soccer and video games with Grandpa Jim and stimulating Socratic dialogues about the latest book they read. Jim, we're deeply grateful for the rich educational legacy you leave, and we wish you the best as you and Deb embark on the next stage of your life together.
How did I get here? How can I have lucked into the chance to spend my professional life talking about ever-challenging books and ideas with young people, sorting out the purpose of their lives? What is it about a liberal arts college that opened one's life up to the depths of human depravity, the inspiring diversity of human lives, and the ever-shifting horizons of human possibilities? My working class background says I should not have been a college professor. But after watching my grandfather get laid off when shipyard workers who had done triple shifts during the war were not needed in peacetime, my father borrowed money to start his own company so the next generation of bosses could not do the same to him, and then set aside money so his children and grandchildren could afford the college he could not. My mother wanted her children to have the education she could not get because of her gender and social class. She used church, comic books, and trips to the public library to help us imagine a world that was broader than our petty local fights. Their vision led me to a liberal arts college. Juniata has been a great match for me. Periods of lost purpose cannot obscure the true satisfaction of moments when teaching and scholarship support each other and connect international debates with our students' questions about how they should lead their lives and accomplish pressing tasks. Since each language is a human life world, any multidimensional view requires some knowledge of more than one language. My work required me to play with 10 of them. Students inspire us to explain why a seemingly abstract idea matters in our daily lives, or why the trauma of other times and places can enrich our understanding of what it means to be human. They help me understand my scholarship. While speaking about Homer and Greek tragedy at a recent conference, a panel member from Hong Kong and I discussed how student reactions to Antigone and Creon revealed generational divides about why a society might need government, and whether college education can help people become good citizens. Aren't global markets enough? At Juniata, I taught every aspect of Russian language and life. Students studied abroad at multiple sites and completed senior projects on more topics than I can list, often in combination with faculty from other programs. I scrambled to learn enough to avoid looking like a fool. Faculty from other schools consistently expressed surprise at how much grant work and general education allow me to work with faculty from all over campus. My two biggest projects were international studies and the LC part of the HHMI genomics grant. International studies gave a home in the 1990s to faculty who wanted to apply critical theories to the study of the so-called Western cultural heritage. We had lived through debates over civil rights in Vietnam and questioned the dominant narrative of liberal progress. I remain grateful to the senior faculty who let us create that space, and I'm hopeful that young faculty will create a space that suits their interests. We spent 5 years working on the HMI grant, and getting it scared the heck out of me. Fortunately, the grant revealed the quality of my colleagues. Faculty taught each other their fields in workshops, and I met a group of talented science students who would never have studied with me otherwise. I even gave presentations on the ethics of science and technology at science conferences, an example of what Juniata can accomplish. The same is true of the grant-funded faculty trips I led to Russia and participated in to Morocco, my own travel around the world, and other work at the Center for Hellenic Studies and on NEH grants. New languages, new ideas, new people enrich our lives and teaching. Juniata has indeed been a great place for me. What drew me to literature was my love for languages and a sense that our moral imagination is of primary importance in civil and personal life. By moral imagination, I mean the ability to imagine not only what it might be like to be another person living in another human life world, but also what other forms our own lives might take. The rich textures and thick descriptions of stories make those imaginings rife with emotional and intellectual experience and possibilities for ethical exploration. But those same stories can become traps, enclosing us within reflective mirrors of our own exceptionalism that cause us to limit ourselves and dehumanize others. Art and criticism help us sharpen our moral imagination by revealing current limitations and possible alternatives. Moral imagination can restore our possibility of being people who sometimes have the insight to treat others and ourselves with the charity we deserve and need if we are to survive in a world threatened by the hubris of our own power. Juniata's liberal arts community has kept my moral imagination alive, and I trust you can sustain that community if you remain open to the unpredictable future. Thanks for some great years, colleagues and students.
Hello, I'm Uma Ramakrishnan, and this is a citation for Dr. Polly Walker, the director of the Baker Institute for Peace and Conflict Studies and the Elizabeth Evans Baker Professor for Peace and Conflict Studies. We acknowledge that we are living and working on the homelands of the Juniata Aka, the people of the Standing Stone, the Oneida Nation, who had a village here at the time of colonization. Dr. Polly Walker begins every presentation and signs every email acknowledging the debt we owe the First Peoples here in Huntington. She lives her commitment to dialogue, peace building, and social justice in all aspects of her life. Polly is an international leader in the field of arts and peace building. As the director of the Baker Institute for Peace and Conflict Studies, Polly has led our program in innovations with fresh perspectives on the central importance of the arts to healing a person, a community, or a nation torn apart with violence. With cultural, not just political understanding, she enlarged our appreciation for creative conflict transformation, using dialogue, storytelling, and music as gateways to deep spiritual change. As the leading scholar on Indigenous approaches to peace, her contributions are impressive and way too many to mention in the brief time that I've been given. Polly increased our collective consciousness about Indigenous peoples locally as well as nationally and globally. Celia Kaufman, her longtime colleague and collaborator, reflected that Polly is the quintessential example of a teacher-scholar. She's an amazing teacher who creates engaged and engaging learning spaces for her students, challenging them to learn about the world, peace studies, and themselves as they grapple with fundamental questions about human behavior and the potential for peace building and conflict transformation. Polly challenged her students to think deeply and critically about peace issues. Her students came to anticipate and appreciate her challenge to think in complex and nuanced ways. Dr. Walker's capacity to engage and transform students through her warm spirit, gentle sense of humor, and keen awareness makes her an extraordinary mentor and guide in the complex discipline of peace building. Her students, Caitlin Granger and Shanna Menendez, along with her colleague Stacia Fliegel, thought it would be fun to write a little send-off using as many Pollyisms as they could cram into a few sentences. We had fun using words and phrases that she's notorious for using in class and in formal and informal conversations with students. Here's what we came up with. Your biggest fans took a collaborative approach to crafting this little send-off. Our feelings about your leaving are nuanced. We will deeply miss your passion and rigor for decolonizing education. Plus, how will any of us fully grasp epistemological pluralism without you? However, we know that you have worked long and hard and deserve a rest. Rather than mount a campaign of nonviolent resistance to pressure you to stay, we are sending you well wishes, secure in the knowledge that you will use your administrative acumen to create a solid conceptual framework for structuring your free time and retirement. Keep in touch and stay vigilant and engaged. Don't get hit by the potato chip truck. Congratulations, Polly, from all of us, your students, colleagues, friends, and the Juniata community on your retirement. We wish you safe travels as you continue your journey in restorative justice beyond Juniata College. Thank you for all you've done for us, and Polly, we will miss you. Thank you.
Thank you, Uma, for your beautiful words. I appreciate them deeply. I was living and working in Brisbane, Australia when I first heard of Juniata College and the Baker Institute for Peace and Conflict Studies. I set out to learn more about this liberal arts college to decide if I wanted to apply for a position here, and I found out that it is ranked as one of the 40 colleges that change lives. I understand this concept applies primarily to students who attend Juniata College. However, today I want to talk about the ways in which Juniata College has changed my life. My life has been changed through the privilege of living and working for 10 years in the homelands of the Haudenosaunee Confederacy. One of the 6 nations of the Confederacy is the Oneota-Aga, who had a village here at the time of colonization, possibly to aid the transition of the Tuscarora Nation from the southeast coast of what is now the United States into Oneida territory in the northeast. What an impressive diplomatic process for the Oneota-Aga to absorb an entire nation, to grant hospitality and home to another nation pressed toward extinction by settler colonialism. My life has also changed through learning from an Oneida knowledge holder, Candace Watson, who shared with our campus community the tradition of the Haudenosaunee Great Law of Peace, which informed the creation of the Constitution of the United States. I now have a deeper relationship with the indigenous approaches to peace, which have shaped the governance framework of the United States. My life has also been changed by Juniata's emphasis on international collaboration. Through learning from international scholars and artist peace builders who have shared their expertise and experiences with our campus community. A few that impacted me the most were Ronnie Yimsut, a survivor of the Cambodian genocide, who shared both the atrocities he experienced and his ongoing commitment to building peace by addressing the legacies of mass violence. In Hallgritter, witnessing a play, Bassam, that was a cry for peace, an appeal to break generational cycles of violence, a collaboration between a Palestinian actor and an Israeli playwright who performed on our campus and facilitated an engaging dialogue afterwards. And I've been shaped by our international collaboration with artists and peace and conflict studies scholars around the world as we designed a global infrastructure for the field of arts, culture, and conflict transformation, particularly our 4-year collaboration with Kiche Magak and Susan Kalonzo from Kenya, both peace scholars of international renown who deepened my understanding of peace building in East Africa and who spoke in our classes, mentored our students, and facilitated workshops on our campus. My life has been changed by dedicated and excellent Juniata professors who live out the creed, peace is everybody's business. From professors who serve on the advisory board for the Baker Institute and affiliated professors in the PAX program, I have learned how their disciplines play central roles in transforming conflict and building peace. Scholars such as Jim Bogart, who has collaborated with the Baker Institute to create a certificate in peace engineering, one of only 2 institutions in the United States who offer this. Allison Fletcher, whose history courses embody the deepest principles of conflict transformation, and Celia Cook Huffman, whose research in gender and conflict has enhanced my engagement at this nexus. My life has been changed by the dedicated and passionate Juniata student and alumni peace builders who are committed to social justice and to transforming conflict through nonviolent means. I would like to share one example with you. Each year, PAC students accompanied me and other Juniata professors to the Peace and Justice Studies Association conference, held somewhere in Turtle Island, either in the United States or Canada. At every conference, professors from other colleges and universities came up to me and said, "I've never seen such impressive students as the students from Juniata College. They ask the most insightful questions and they're so knowledgeable about the most recent theories of peace building." So I have grown by doing my best to keep up with the keen intellect, the passionate commitment, and the critical thinking of Juniata students. I've been challenged to take risks by students such as Lilian Umahosa from Rwanda, who, as an undergraduate student, started a healing retreat for women who had been raped during the genocide and who had born and raised children in the midst of that violence. I have learned courage from my Rosh Faiz Kwaisari, who put her life on the line each summer when she returned from Juniata to Afghanistan to teach young women in remote villages. Time limitations prohibit my naming all of the international colleagues, faculty, and students who have changed my life. I do, however, intend to stay in touch with them and to express my gratitude in other ways. In closing, I would like to say to the people and the place that have changed my life in ways that are deeply embedded into my being, changes which I will carry with me, a phrase from my Cherokee ancestors, Wado, Galielega, thank you, I am grateful.
It is my great honor on behalf of the English department to applaud the teaching career of my professor, our colleague, and our friend, Peter Goldstein. The popular Dos Equis marketing campaign has the most interesting man in the world. Since 1991, Juniata's English department has had the most surprising one. Sure, there are certain things that we could always count on Peter for. A hearty laugh in the hallway, classical music emanating from his office, having him show up once a year with his annual haircut, sweet daily mention of how much he loves his cherished wife, Louise, a gift of Louise's spectacular homemade cookies at the holiday season, leaning in over the desk when he talked with enthusiasm, the removal of his wool sweater layer at some point during the day. As entertaining as those givens are, the surprises were what made Peter Goldstein remarkable for students and his colleagues alike. I remember the day he casually dropped into class conversation that he had once lived in Beverly Hills and had been a lawyer in LA before returning to graduate school to finish a PhD in British literature. Peter? The guy who would come into Carol Peters' house and immediately drop to the floor and roll around with her dogs was once a suit and tie lawyer in the 90210? Mind-blowing. Other shockers? He was once a PA announcer for football games. He's a regular columnist for a soccer website. And once, a goat tried to kill him. Entertaining revelations aside, Peter's actions on campus were often even more pleasantly surprising. Let's look at a small sample of the breadth of courses he taught with great success. Poetry writing, science fiction, British literature from 16 to 1800, bad literature. Think of the assortment of authors he covered in those courses: Milton to Pratchett, Donne to Steele, Gibson to Shakespeare. Whether creating courses to explore his diverse personal interests or to graciously fill the needs of the department, Peter's teaching range has been astounding. With that range came an incredible body of knowledge, one that he shared joyfully and unfailingly. Peter never acted as a gatekeeper of information. We saw that as colleagues, certainly, but our students benefited from this quality most of all. Students felt that in his classrooms when he'd walk in, hop up onto the desk, and ask what they wanted to discuss. So often, even for Peter, the focus of a class started off as a surprise. But then he'd shepherd students through their questions and ideas, to places of understanding as if he had spent hours meticulously crafting that discussion path. And so he created learning environments in which students were asked not to attain the facts that he knew, but to appreciate the revelations that they could find together. Stunning. Finally, when I came back to Juniata, Peter told me that he was going to give me the Shakespearean drama class to teach. It was a course that he had taught to me, and one of the reasons I studied Shakespeare at the graduate level. And he was just going to give it to me at the start of my career. When I hesitated, he said, "No, you're the expert in this now. It's yours." Amazing. That's just who Peter Goldstein is. Everything he has done on this campus, from the ways he's taught his classes, to advising his students, how he supported colleagues, contributed to committees, promoted student work through Vassar and poetry readings, everything he has done with a surprising amount of generosity and sincerity. And it has made us all better students, scholars, and people. It is no surprise then that Peter's students, our colleagues, and I will miss him very much. Happy retirement, Peter.
Hi, everyone. I'm retired, and retirement is great, and I hope someday you get there, and I hope you get there soon. I went out on the job market in 1991, and I sent my CV to 52 institutions of higher learning, and I got 2 job offers, and I was pretty pleased about that. And it turns out that they were both small liberal arts colleges in the Northeast. And as it also turned out, the choice was very easy for me because one of the colleges offered me more money and better benefits and had more resources and had a higher academic reputation. I chose Juniata instead. And if there were a crowd here, that was the laugh line. We were all supposed to laugh at that point. Yes, and that's a true story. I chose Juniata over Union College in Schenectady, New York. And I chose Juniata for 2 reasons. And 30 years later, not only do I know that I made the right choice, but I made the right choice for the right reasons. My second reason, the second most important, was that Juniata cared about teaching. That teaching came first at JC. And what can I say? In 30 years, I've had so many wonderful opportunities to teach, so many chances to try new pedagogies, so many chances to do new courses, plenty of creativity, plenty of one-on-one meetings with students, real live teaching the way it should be. And I've been so very fortunate that JC has supported me and rewarded me for that. I can't say what a joy it has been to do that. And I hope that I became a significantly better teacher over the years. And if I did, it was because of Juniata College, because of the emphasis JC placed on teaching. And I haven't even mentioned all the great conversations I had with other faculty members about pedagogy and about teaching, which made things that much more stimulating, that much more exciting. I got to teach some courses, which was wonderful. It was just a great, great teaching experience. And I can't imagine that I would have had it any better anywhere else. But that was only the second reason. The most important reason, the number one reason I chose Juniata was the people. The people were great, and they were just really nice people. And I don't know whether it is something about JC that tends to attract nice people, but I have been so fortunate over the years in having so many nice people to work with, and at all departments of the institution. This sounds strange, but I loved committee work because I got to meet all sorts of wonderful, great faculty and work with some really, really nice people. Hey, and I'm not supposed to say this, but I even enjoyed working with the administration because the administration was full of nice people, and the alumni office was full of nice people, and the library and enrollment and everywhere. Just good people to have as colleagues, or just good people to pass by in the hall and say hi to, and just make your day that much nicer with a little bit of small talk. So in 30 years, what I will look back on most with joy and appreciation for Juniata is the teaching opportunities I've had and the wonderful people I've done. And I realized that there is no utopia in the academia or anywhere else for that matter, and no place is perfect, but I honestly cannot imagine having had a more enjoyable teaching career anywhere else at Juniata. So basically my retirement message is thank you all. Thank all of the people at Juniata College who make it what it is and that I hope it will continue to be, who have made my life and my career such a joy for 30 years. And one more thing I want to say, here's Natasha. Natasha says, thank you, Juniata College. Bye-bye, everyone, take care.
It is my distinct but bittersweet honor and privilege to introduce Dr. Richard Hark. In 2001, Richard left a tenured position at Marietta College to join Juniata's faculty. In 2007, Richard was promoted to full professor, having received the Outstanding Faculty Award in 2004 and the Henry H. 57 and Joan R. Gibble Award for Teaching Excellence in 2007. In 2008, Richard assumed the position of Chair of Chemistry, where he oversaw the hiring of 5 faculty in the span of 4 years and helped with a complete overhaul of our departmental curriculum. And in 2007, Richard took an opportunity at Yale's Institute for the Preservation of Cultural Heritage, where he has remained, now a conservation scientist, ever since. Richard is a consummate liberal arts scholar. Trained as a synthetic organic chemist, he and his group received research grants from companies such as L'Oreal and 3M, as well as from a congressionally funded program to develop analytical tools for first responders. His application of various spectroscopic and microscopic techniques has allowed him to, among other things, investigate the authenticity or lack thereof of medieval miniatures, to study a copy of the Gutenberg Bible, and to test the authenticity of a book at the Juniata Library purported to be made of human skin. It wasn't, it was only sheepskin. These and other projects have led him to an enviable list of collaborators and partners, including the Smithsonian and the U.S. Secret Service. A longtime member of the American Chemical Society, Richard has an impressive publishing record and over 100 presentations, many of which have students as co-authors and/or presenters. Okay, that's Richard the CV, but who is Richard the man? Richard is the rare professor who has students lined up for office hours because they know him to be patient and kind and generous with his time. Richard is the colleague who invites a first-year faculty member, me, to serve with him at Madrigal so he can share with me the Juniata traditions he so loved. Richard is the community member who received training as an EMT and who served Huntington County as a hazmat specialist for over 10 years. Richard is a man of faith who led a local congregation for more than 6 years, served as a regional leader for more than 4 years, and was an area youth leader for 3 years. And Richard is a man who adores his family, his wife Memory, their 5 children, and their growing list of grandchildren. When informed of Richard's retirement, many of his former students jumped at the opportunity to share their gratitude. Sadly, in the interest of time, I will cite only a few. Dr. Natalie McAmur, a lecturer at the University of Maine, writes, "Quite simply, I would not be in this position without Richard. I fell in love with organic chemistry during his class and never looked back." Dr. Chesney Richter, a research associate at the University of Arizona, writes, "I will always look back on my times with Dr. Hark as a pivotal moment, and I hope he knows how much he touched my life and those of other students like me." And Dr. Katie Houston, a senior scientist at Eastman, writes, "Not only did Richard enhance our academic careers, but also our cultural experiences. My roommate and I saw our first opera, thanks to Richard. A Cook's Illustrated Cookbook still adorns my kitchen bookshelf, splattered with fond memories of meals shared, thanks to Richard. I had my first scientific publication based on an organic synthesis project and the opportunity to perform research in the world-renowned art museum in London, the Victoria and Albert Museum, thanks to Richard. And today I value the impact of science, art, and community, much of that thanks to Richard's influence and example." Dr. Jen Streb, longtime collaborator and professor of art history, writes, "Although I was hesitant to accept Richard's invitation to teach the chemistry of art class with him, I will be forever grateful for that invitation. His passion was not just for chemistry, but for art, and it was palpable in the classroom, and he certainly succeeded in making the chemistry component less scary for me and my art history students. I became a better teacher and curator due to Richard's guidance and to the work that we did together. Thank you, Richard, for pushing me out of my comfort zone and for being such a great friend." Well, many of us have been blessed to count Richard among our friends and colleagues. So to close, I'd like to borrow the words of another former student, Lucy East, who I believe speaks for all of us. Richard, I'm so very happy for you and excited to see you enjoy retirement. Although I can't imagine you slowing down much, I hope you now have more time with memory and your family, as well as for projects that really make your heart sing. Congratulations, Richard.
I want to thank DeAndres for preparing that generous and heartfelt citation. When I was a young man, my father gave me two important pieces of advice about choosing my life's work. The first was that I should not do what he did. My dad was a carpenter who specialized in building and refinishing bowling alleys, and that was the trade I learned as a teenager. It was good counsel, since these days almost all bowling alleys have laminate surfaces that do not require the services of specialized carpenters like my father. However, the skills I developed doing that work have served me well, in obvious ways, such as my ability to refinish hardwood floors, but also in the values and habits my father instilled in me through his example: ingenuity, craftsmanship, the ability to interact with people with kindness and integrity, and the virtue of hard work. The second piece of career advice I received was to choose a path that would allow me to do something I loved. I have succeeded in this too, as I have enjoyed being an educator and a scientist for more than 25 years. The etymology of the word career includes a definition that originates in the 16th century and describes a career as a running, usually at full speed. That's been my experience with the career I chose. It has often felt like I was running at full speed as I strove to excel in my professional life while satisfying my curiosity and an inner desire to explore those things that interested me. And there was relatively little that did not interest me, as evidenced by the broad range of research activities in which I've been engaged over the years. Each experience helped prepare me in some way for the work I am currently doing at the Institute for the Preservation of Cultural Heritage at Yale. To paraphrase a Bruce Springsteen song, like a river that don't know where it's flowing, I took some right turns and I just kept going. With each turning, I ended up where I was supposed to be. I've been fortunate to have excellent colleagues to share this journey, several of whom provided critical motivation and encouragement at opportune times, and all of whom enriched me in some way. Time does not allow me to single out individuals, but I offer my sincere thanks to everyone who helped me on my way. It could be argued that I took a chance giving up tenure at another school to move to Juniata, but it was a risk worth taking, and one for which I felt richly rewarded in many ways over the years. The most rewarding aspect of my work at Juniata has been the opportunity to serve as a teacher for over 1,000 students, an advisor for a few hundred young men and women, and a mentor for several dozen individuals who worked in my laboratory over the years. They have been my inspiration 99% of the time, and my frustration the other 1%. But through 25 years of teaching, the students have made it all worthwhile. Thank you for challenging me and for growing as I challenged you. Lastly, and most importantly, I want to thank my incredible wife, Memory, and our 5 amazing children for enabling my accomplishments and for making my non-professional life a joyous adventure. To borrow from another song, because of them, I have been changed for good. I'll ne'er forget, though far I go, the days within Juniata's walls. Thank you.